Good morning. Good morning, everybody. This is Doc Jeff. I'm Dr. Jeff Evenson. I'm a board certified doctor of holistic health. I am not a medical doctor. I do not practice medicine. I don't pretend to practice medicine. Instead, I practice out of my homestead, or I work with clients virtually, clients all over the states, and I help people get their health back through natural means without drugs or surgery. Okay. I always like to point that out, because I don't want people to get confused that I'm not a medical doctor. I am not a medical doctor. So I'm streaming live. This is the last weekend of the year. This is the last broadcast of 2025, the last live stream. And it's exciting. I almost made it. This episode is number 79. And I'm streaming live, of course, from my homestead up in northern Minnesota. Finlayson is the town. And it is cloudy and dreary outside. There's a lot of moisture in the air. I think there's a winter advisory for ice because there's so much humidity in the air. I don't mind it so much because then the temperature is up around 30 degrees. I think today we're expecting like a high of 37 degrees. So I'm back in t-shirt. This is t-shirt weather, at least in the house. Let me open up the comments here. Okay. Let's oh, good. It is set to public. Good. All right. Just checking all the different stream channels. If you have a chance, if you are on watching, I opened up the comments and just post in there, say hi, let me know where you're watching from. Okay. I've got a good show this morning. We're going to, because of the holidays, we're going to dive in. We've eaten, over the holidays. Sometimes we tend to eat more than we should or eat plenty of things that we should not eat. We know it makes us feel like shit and all that. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about digestion, and as we weave into that, the chat channel is open. Throw in a hi. It looks like people are starting to pour in. That's good. And let's have fun with this last episode. We're going to talk about digestion from the mouth all the way down through to the anus. Yep, I said the word on live stream. All right. So let's get after it. Good morning and welcome back, to Morning Coffee with Doc Jeff. If you are tuning in this morning feeling a little off, if your digestion hasn't quite settled since the holidays, if you've been dealing with indigestion, acid reflux, bloating, pressure, heaviness, or that familiar thought of, why did I do that to myself? I want you to take a breath with me right now because what you're experiencing is not a failure of discipline. It's not proof that you're broken. It's not your body turning against you. It's communication. Over the last few days, I shared a short message about indigestion and acid reflux, and the response told me something important. A lot of people are quietly uncomfortable right now, physically and emotionally, after the meals, after the gatherings, after the sugar, the alcohol, the rich foods, the late nights. And what usually follows is guilt, self-judgment, that inner voice that says, I know better than this. Or I shouldn't feel like this. I just need to get back on track. But here's what I've learned after years of working with digestion and chronic health problems, and from in my clients and in my own health. I've got an itch on my nose. Sorry. Um, your body doesn't shame you. Your body doesn't punish you. Your body gives feedback. And this morning, instead of talking about what you shouldn't have eaten or what you need to cut out next, I want to do something different. I want to follow the digestive system from the very first bite of food all the way through to the end of the line, because indigestion, reflux, bloating, constipation, loose stools, fatigue after meals, brain fog, heaviness, they're not random, they're not isolated, and they're not separate issues. They're chapters in the same story. And in my practice, I don't ask, what symptoms are we suppressing today? I ask, where did the digestive conversation start to break down? And that's what we're going to explore together this morning. Not from a place of blame, not from a place of fear, but from understanding. Because when you understand the why, the body begins to soften, the nervous system settles, and healing stops feeling like a battle. So if you've been uncomfortable after meals, if acid reflux has been flaring up again, if your gut has been louder than usual, stay with me. We're going to walk this path slowly, clearly, and honestly from the first bite to the final exit. Yes, we might talk about poop and everything in between. And by the end of today's conversation, my hope is simple, that you walk away with less shame, more clarity, and a better understanding of what your body has been trying to tell you all along. Okay? So if you happen to be watching, throw a hi in the post a comment in the chat and let me know where you're watching from. I appreciate that. It helps other people see where people are coming in from. And I understand there are some people that don't like to post anything. That's fine. All right. So digestion, we know, starts before you eat. All right. Before food ever reaches your stomach, before acid is released, before enzymes are activated, digestion has already begun, or it hasn't. And this is one of the most overlooked pieces of digestive health. Digestion does not start in the stomach. It starts in the brain and nervous system. Your body has two primary modes it operates from. Okay? One is survival, the other is restoration. And so when you're stressed, rushed, distracted, emotionally charged, or eating on the run, your body prioritizes survival. Blood flow shifts away from digestion. Enzyme production slows. Signals get delayed. And then we wonder why food doesn't sit well. Think about how many holiday meals look like this: eating later than normal, eating faster than normal, eating while talking, laughing, scrolling, standing, cleaning, driving, eating past that fullness because it's just today. It's just today. None of that is a moral issue, but it is a physiological one. Your mouth is designed to be the first digestive organ. Chewing is not just mechanical. It signals the entire digestive cascade all the way through. And when you chew well, saliva begins breaking down food. The stomach gets the message to prepare. The pancreas and liver start coordinating downstream. But when you rush, food arrives underprepared. The stomach is caught off guard. Everything downstream has to work harder. So here's something that I often say in my practice. You can eat the cleanest food in the world, but if your body is not in a receptive state, digestion will suffer. This is why some people say, I eat healthy, but I still feel bloated. Or I eat clean, but I still get reflux. Or I don't eat that much, but I feel heavy. It's not always about what you ate, it's about how your body received it. And this is where guilt needs to leave the conversation. Your body wasn't failing over the holidays. It was responding to a different rhythm. More stimulation, more emotion, more timing disruptions, more quality. The nervous system noticed. So if digestion has been off since then, it makes sense. This is also why slowing down at meals is not a mindset trick. It's a physiological intervention. Even a few deep breaths before eating, even sitting instead of standing, even chewing a little longer. Those small shifts tell the body it's safe to digest now. And when digestion feels safer, everything downstream improves. So next we're going to move into the stomach itself and talk about acid reflux, indigestion, and one of the biggest misunderstandings I see around around stomach acid, because for many people the problem isn't too much acid, it's poor coordination. And that can change everything about how we approach healing. And I know this from personal experience about not having enough stomach acid. Okay. Maybe I'll touch more on that here in this segment. We're going to talk about why acid reflux is rarely about too much acid. That might surprise people. I know it did me when I figured that out. Once food leaves the mouth, it enters the stomach, of course. And this is where a lot of people's digestive stories starts to go sideways. Because we've been taught something that simply isn't true. Most people believe acid reflux happens because the stomach is producing too much acid. That the solution is to calm it down, neutralize it, or shut it off. But in my experience, my personal experience, and in the patterns I see over and over again, that's rarely the real issue. The stomach is designed to be highly acidic. Strong acid is not a flaw, it's a feature. And that acidity in the stomach is what breaks down protein. It activates enzymes. It sterilizes food. It signals the next phase of digestion. And when stomach acid is weak or delayed or poorly timed, food does not break down efficiently. And when food sits, pressure builds. That pressure has to go somewhere. So instead of moving down, it moves up. And this is where reflux shows up. Burning, regurgitation, chest pressure. It's that uncomfortable sensation rising up after meals, not because there's too much acid. It's because digestion stalled. And here's something that I explain to people all the time. Reflux is often a pressure problem, not an acid problem. Now, later in the holidays, where you take in heavier meals, you're probably eating more protein and fat than usual. You're consuming alcohol. You're eating sugar. Who doesn't like a good Christmas cookie? You're eating later at night. You're eating past fullness. All of that requires strong, coordinated stomach acid. But if the nervous system is already stressed, rushed, or overwhelmed, that signal to produce acid is blunted. So the stomach gets behind. And when digestion gets behind, symptoms show up. This is why so many people say I was fine, then suddenly reflux started. Or it only happens after the big meals, or it flares up at night. Those aren't random, they're clues. My stomach acid, my acid reflux was so bad because I had a hiatal hernia at the top of my stomach. And so a lot of times if I had food on my stomach, if I'd laid down, whatever was in my stomach would often spill up into my sinuses. And you've heard me tell that story before. And when that happens, your body wakes up instantly. So here's where I want to be really clear. Okay. Medications that suppress acid can provide relief. They can reduce the burning, they can quiet the signal. But quieting a signal is not the same as resolving the reason it was there. That's the work that we do here in my office. We're going to resolve the original reason. What is the root cause causing that acid reflux? A lot of times it's too much sugar, it's all the cakes, the pastas, the breads, all of that. The simple carbohydrates will irritate, and it creates that environment where acid reflux becomes a reality. So one of the bad things, though, is if acid is suppressed long term, your protein digestion suffers, your mineral absorption declines, and the downstream organs will struggle. Food arrives further along, only partially broken down. And that sets the stage for the next layer of digestive stress, okay, which is where we're headed next. But before we move on, I want to say this clearly. If you've been dealing with reflux or indigestion, especially after the holidays, your body is not malfunctioning. It's responding to the timing, load, and coordination. And when we can stop fighting the symptom and start listening to the pattern, the path forward becomes much clearer. So we're going to move past the stomach and into the small intestine. And this is where bloating, gas, food reactions, and that why do I feel so terrible after I eat feeling often take root. And once you see how this connects, the digestive picture starts to make a lot more sense. Before I go into the segment, if you're just joining the show, pop into the comments and see let me know where you're watching from. Appreciate it. And if you have any questions along the way, I will do my best to answer them. You can put those in the comments too. All right. So we're going to look at the small intestine, as I said, where bloating, gas, and food reactions begin. Okay. Can't have morning coffee with Doc Jeff unless you have your coffee. Just saying. All right. Once food leaves the stomach, it enters the small intestine. And this is where things can get really, often get confusing for people, because this is the stage where many of the symptoms that frustrate and scare people the most begin to show up. This would be bloating. This would be gas, cramping, pressure, food reactions, that heavy, uncomfortable feeling after meals, even fatigue or brain fog shortly after eating. And here's the key principle I want you to hear. The small intestine is not designed to deal with poorly digested food. Its job is absorption. But when food arrives from the stomach only partially broken down, the small intestine has to shift from absorption to damage control. It has to deal with the undigested proteins, the poorly emulsified fats, the fats that don't get broken down, fermentable carbohydrates. And instead of being absorbed smoothly, they become fuel for fermentation. This is where the gas comes. That fermentation creates gas. That gas creates pressure. That pressure creates discomfort. And this is why bloating often feels worse an hour or two after eating, not immediately. It's also why people start to believe they're suddenly reactive to foods that they used to tolerate, like dairy and gluten and vegetables, even healthy foods. But here's an important reframe on that. Food sensitivities are often a result of digestive breakdown, not the original cause. So what that means is when digestion upstream is compromised, the small intestine becomes irritated and the lining becomes inflamed. The immune system becomes more reactive, the tolerance threshold drops. So foods that once passed through quietly now create symptoms, and this is where a lot of people get stuck. They start eliminating foods one by one. They fear eating. They chase lists of safe foods. But the real question isn't always what food is the problem. It's often why is the small intestine being asked to do work it wasn't designed to do? After the holidays, it becomes more obvious because you've had more volume, more variety, more sugar, more alcohol, and more late meals. My family and I are going to be enjoying each other's company today. They came up yesterday, and they'll be here all day today. We're going to have our Christmas meal today and all that, and um, we'll do it again tomorrow. And all of that, the digestive system can get overwhelmed, and the small intestine starts waving a flag. Not because it's broken, because it's overloaded. It's like help. This is also where people experience that post-meal crash. You eat, and instead of energy, you feel tired, foggy, sluggish. That's not laziness. That's your body diverting energy to manage digestive stress. So, if bloating, gas, or food reactions have been made louder lately, it's not random. It's a downstream effect of what happened earlier in the digestive process. So, it brings us to the next critical step in the journey because the small intestine does not work alone. It relies heavily on support from three major players that are often overlooked. That'd be the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. And when those organs are underperforming or overwhelmed, digestion struggles no matter how clean the diet looks. And that's where we're headed next. All right. So we call the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas, oftentimes we call it the forgotten digestive organs. I know it's crazy. So if digestion were a relay race, the stomach and small intestine get most of the attention. But in reality, some of the most important work happens behind the scenes with the liver, the gallbladder, and the pancreas. When these three are underperforming, digestion can look mysteriously broken, even when everything upstream seems fine. So let's start with the liver. The liver produces bile. Bile is not optional, it's essential. Bile is what breaks down fats so that they can be absorbed. It also plays a role in moving, excuse me, in moving waste forward and keeping things flowing. So the gallbladder stores that bile and releases it when needed, if you still have your gallbladder. If you don't have your gallbladder, then the bile will keep trickling down into the small intestine. I don't have a gallbladder, I'm one of those. And the pancreas provides enzymes that finish the digestive process. So here's where things often break down. During the holidays, people tend to eat more fat, richer meals, heavier desserts, and who hasn't done the larger portions? That requires strong bile flow and sufficient enzyme output. But if bile is thick, sluggish, or poorly released, the fats don't break down very well. And when fats don't break down, food will sit longer Nausea can show up, bloating increases, stools can change. You have a heavy, stuck feeling following meals, and people often describe it as it just sits there. I feel full forever, or I don't feel like eating again for a long time. That's not about willpower, that's about bile flow. Now add in the enzyme stress. Enzymes are finite. Chronic stress, poor nutrient status, and years of digestive strain reduce the enzyme availability. So even if food reaches the small intestine, the body struggles to finish the job. And this is where the domino effect continues. Poor fat digestion affects hormone balance. Poor protein digestion affects tissue repair. And poor breakdown affects microbial balance. This is also why some people notice greasy or floating stools. You might notice a change in your bowel color. Did your color of your poop change? Alternating between constipation and loose stools. How many people have experienced that? Me. Increased food sensitivity over time. Those aren't random quirks, they're signals. And the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas are asking for support. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see is people jumping straight to killing bacteria, yeast, or parasites without first supporting these organs. Because if bile and enzymes are weak, clearing anything becomes harder. And the terrain matters. So when someone tells me I feel worse after rich meals, or I can't tolerate fats anymore, I feel nauseous after eating, I don't think what food should they avoid? I think what digestive support is missing. And with quantum nutrition testing, I can figure that out. We're going to drill into what that root cause is if you're working with me. And it leads us naturally to the kind of the final leg of the journey, because whatever isn't properly digested, absorbed, or moved along eventually reaches the large intestine. And that's where the patterns around constipation, the loose stools, irregularity, and the microbiome imbalance start to show up. And that's where we're going to dive into next. All right. If you're just joining the show, be sure to say hi in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. Or if you happen to be watching a replay, do the same. Throw in the comments, hey. All right. So with the large intestine, we're looking at transit time, regularity, and listening to the exit signals. Now we get to talk about poop. You can't talk to a holistic practitioner without having a conversation about poop. All right. So everything we talked about so far eventually ends up here in the large intestine. Whatever wasn't fully broken down, whatever wasn't properly absorbed, whatever wasn't moved efficiently, it all arrives in the large intestine. And this is where the body gives some of its clearest feedback, even though it's the part people talk about the least. Unless you happen to be at a conference and you're out to eat with a table and you have a table full of your colleagues and friends of other holistic practitioners, you can bet your bottom dollar at some point the discussion will turn to poop. All right. So bowel movements, it's not just about elimination. Hey, Krista, good to see you on the show. All right. It's not just about elimination. All right. The bowel movements are about flow, they're about rhythm, and completion. Okay? When digestion upstream is coordinated, the large intestine does its job quietly. Okay? When it isn't, patterns start to show up. You get constipation. And constipation, I'm happy if we can get people to poop at least one time a day. Okay? Now, the perfect human would be pooping 2 to 3 times a day. But for a majority of people, pooping one time a day is considered not constipated. Okay. Um, that's why when I'm doing my intake on people, I'll say, "Are you constipated? Are you pooping at least one time a day?" Because if I don't ask that extra question, sometimes people think that you're constipated or you're regular if you're pooping every 3 or 4 days. Okay. That's not normal. It's a clear sign that there's something wrong. You need to be pooping every single day. Okay. So the patterns that show up: constipation, loose stools. I know people that plan their drives according to how quickly they can pull into a bathroom along the road's journey. Then you can alternate between the two, constipation or loose stools, or suddenly have urgency. You better get in there. Okay. Or when you're pooping, it doesn't feel like you had a complete evacuation. Feels like there's more to go. There's irregular timing in our schedules. These are not separate problems, okay? They're reflections of what happened earlier in the digestive process. So let's talk about this constipation for a minute. It's constipation is rarely just about fiber, okay? It's often about poor bile flow, and we're talking upstream. Dehydration at the cellular level. You can be dehydrated. You might be stressed, nervous system tension, or you could just have a sluggish transit time. The body holding on because it doesn't feel safe to let go. Consider that. So when bile is weak, the stool dries out. When the nervous system is stressed, peristalsis slows. Peristalsis is the motion that the intestines have to move things along. It's all done through muscle contractions, and they call that peristalsis. When digestion upstream is incomplete, the colon struggles to form and move stool efficiently. And on the other side, loose stools often point to poor fat digestion, incomplete absorption, irritation in the gut lining, and rapid transit because the body wants things out. And neither is random. And here's something important I want to normalize, okay? Your bowel movements are feedback, they are information. It's not something to be embarrassed about. Here's a news flash: everybody poops. Every living creature on this planet poops. I know it might be a shock to some, but your bowel movements are feedback. There's information in there. Don't be embarrassed about it, and don't ignore it. Especially when I'm doing parasite protocols with people, I will encourage and invite them to keep a couple tools handy by the toilet. So if they need to go digging into their stool to break it apart, we're looking to see if the parasites are in there. And so poop talk, it's not something to suppress without understanding why it's happening, why things are slowing down or irregular. And so after the holidays, changes in bowel habits are incredibly common. Because as I've said, you've been eating different foods, you've had different timing, different stress levels, different sleep. The gut notices all of it. And when people say, excuse me, when people say my digestion has been off since Christmas, What they're really saying, geez, talk about digestive trouble. I think I drank my coffee too fast. What they're really saying is my rhythm was disrupted, which brings us to the big picture. Reflux is often upstream. Okay, reflux is upstream. Bloating lives in the middle, and irregularity shows up downstream. But it's all one system, one story, one conversation the body is having with you. So when I look at digestion, I don't see isolated symptoms, I see flow, where things slowed down, where pressure built, where coordination was lost. And when we restore flow, the body often corrects itself in ways that surprise people. That's why healing digestion isn't about forcing regularity or suppressing symptoms. It's about supporting the entire journey, from the first bite to the final exit. And that's where I wanted to land the show today. And we won't go the full hour, I don't think, unless I get questions. All right. So if any of this part, if any part of this felt familiar to you, whether it's to you or to somebody that you know, send them the link to the video and have them watch that, because we talked about it from the mouth all the way down through the stomach, your digestive organs, your liver, your pancreas, your gallbladder, through the small intestine, and into the colon. All right. If you've been noticing reflux, bloating, fatigue after meals, or bowel changes lately, your body has been talking. And the good news is it's not too late to listen. And in my practice, it's exactly the kind of pattern that we work through together. Not by guessing, not by jumping to extremes, but by restoring coordination and supporting the system as a whole. So if the conversation resonated with you, I invite you to reach out, ask questions, or start a deeper conversation about your own digestive story. Because when digestion begins to heal, everything often follows. Whenever I'm doing detoxification on people, I'm always going to make sure that they're able to poop, because toxins are going to be moved out through your stool. And if you're constipated, those toxins, those heavy metals, toxic chemicals, parasites, everything just recirculates. It gets reabsorbed by the body while it's sitting in the colon, waiting to go out. It'll get reabsorbed, and then it cycles through again, and you're not getting anywhere. And so I'm always going to make sure I'm going to support the body through any kind of process for detoxification. All right. So let's do this end of year call to action. All right. I want you to lock in 2025 pricing before January 1st. I want to take a moment before we close today, because this timing matters. Every year around this time, a lot of people tell themselves, I'll deal with my health after the holidays. I'll start in January, or I just need to get through the end of the year. And I understand that. But here's what I also know from years of working with people. The body doesn't reset itself just because the calendar changes. If digestion has been cut off, if reflux, bloating, fatigue, or gut issues have been creeping in, those patterns don't magically disappear on January 1st. That's why I want to be very clear about something. Beginning January 1st, my program rates will be increasing. However, if you schedule and complete your full assessment and make the decision to start your program now, I will lock you into 2025 pricing, even if your program officially begins in the first week of January. So let me say that again, because it matters. If you take action now, if you do your assessment, if you commit to beginning your healing journey, you can get locked into 2025 pricing, even if your start date rolls into early January. And it's not about pressure, it's about honoring people who are ready to stop waiting. Healing doesn't start when everything is perfect. It starts when you decide to listen. And if today's conversation helped you see your digestion differently, if you realize your body has been asking for support, if you're tired of guessing and suppressing symptoms, this is your window. You don't need to have everything figured out. That's why you work with a health coach. You just need to take the first step. Reach out, schedule your assessment. Let's have the conversation, and we'll carry that momentum with you into the new year, grounded and supported without rushing. Let me turn on this banner here. All right. Accepting new clients in person or telehealth, book online. Okay. Go to my website, evensonholistic.com, and use the promo code HealthTruth. It's also on a banner on the very top of the webpage. Health Truth. Get out there and book. It'll save you $200. So let's have the conversation, and we'll carry that momentum with you into the new year, grounded, supported, and without rushing. Okay, before I close the show, say hi in the comments if you'd like, and let us know where you're watching from. It's always fun. So I'm going to close with a prayer today, as I try to remember to do for every show, but it's, Christmas. So let's pray. Father, we thank you for the wisdom of the body you designed. Thank you that it speaks with clarity, not condemnation, that it gives signals, not punishment, that even discomfort can be an invitation to slow down, listen, and realign. For those listening this morning who have been frustrated with their digestion, their energy, or their health, I ask that you bring relief, understanding, and hope. Help us release guilt over the past and step forward with discernment instead of fear. Guide us to care for what you have entrusted to us with patience and stewardship. Bless the decisions made in this season. Bring clarity where there has been confusion, peace where there has been tension, and restoration where the body has been asking for help. We trust you with the process, the timing, and the journey ahead. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the last show of 2025. When I started streaming, I never thought I would be approaching 80. So 79, my first show into 2026 is going to be show number 80. I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about yet, but we're going to continue on the education, the discussions, the dialogue. Let me know in the chat if you have ideas for topics you'd like to hear. You can always find the repository for all the other episodes I've done out on Rumble, rumble.com. Look for Evenson Holistic is the channel, and I've got everything archived out there. That's my main archive point. But if you're watching on any of these other platforms, thank you. I appreciate it. So, enjoy the rest of the year. Think about how you can finish up this year and what are your goals into 2026. I'm not a firm believer in New Year's resolutions. I think they're a bunch of bullshit because most of us don't follow them. Instead, I want you to look at 2026 and decide, what kind of year do you want 2026 to be for you? Do you want it to be explosive and high energy and powerful, where you're taking control of your health and getting it back? I've had those years. I'm on the, believe it or not, I've been a holistic practitioner for over 16 years, but it was just over 2 years ago that I rededicated my goals to taking absolute control of my health and getting physically fit and being a practitioner of integrity. Okay. So what that meant for me is whatever I am coaching my clients to do, I'm also doing in my own health journey because it matters. I got up this morning and worked out. Um, I get up almost every day to work out. I'm up about 5 o'clock because I made that a priority in my life. I want to make this body nice and strong and healthy. So when I get into my older years, now I'm 60 years old. I don't feel like I'm 60. If you believe what the Aura Ring says that I wear, it says I fluctuate anywhere between 13 and 15 years younger in my cardiovascular health than my physical age. So to get where I'm at today, I have worked with coaches. I've worked with a business coach, I've worked with a nutrition coach, and I work with a fitness coach. And if your health is off the rails, it might be time to consider working with a health coach for a while. I'm going to give you coaching that you will never, ever receive from a medical profession. You will never receive this from the medical profession. Now, I know medical professionals that wish they could do this type of coaching, but they can't in the system. The system doesn't allow them to do it. They're supposed to be one and done, get these people in, get these people out. I don't do that. We're going to work together for a while because to get true health, you have to look at the root cause and we have to navigate through what your body needs to heal to get you there once and for all. Okay? So let's do it. I love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. And I will see you next year. I'm probably going to be posting and all that kind of stuff through the rest of the year. I might even do some Facebook Lives here and there. But for the show, I won't see you until next year. Love you guys.